Snow drifted softly over Manhattan, catching the glow of Fifth Avenue's Christmas lights like tiny shards of broken promises. Inside the penthouse on Park Avenue, a place that once echoed with laughter and warm holiday dinners, Harper Lennox stood frozen in silence. Her breath trembled as she stared at the document that would end her marriage, her signature already drying in ink that felt colder than the December wind. She should have been preparing hot cocoa, wrapping presents, placing stockings over the fireplace. Instead, she was holding a manila folder containing the divorce papers her husband, Logan Sterling, had shoved at her that morning with a dismissive, "Let's not ruin the holidays, Harper. Just sign." He hadn't even looked at her. The man who once kissed her under the Rockefeller Christmas tree, who once promised forever, had spent the last 6 months pulling away, emotionally first, then physically, and eventually entirely. Tonight, he was working late at Sterling Tower. Harper knew better. Everyone knew better. Even the city lights seemed to whisper the truth she didn't want to hear. Her fingers tightened around something else, a small plastic stick she'd hidden in her coat pocket. 2 faint pink lines stared back at her. 2 lines that should have meant joy. Life. A new beginning. Instead, they felt like a cruel twist of fate, landing on the very night she was being pushed out of a life she fought so hard to keep. She placed the pregnancy test on the glass coffee table beside Logan's Montblanc pen, the same pen he used to sign off million-dollar deals while treating her like an inconvenience he forgot to remove from his calendar. Her hands shook as she added a small note, written on a simple white card. "Merry Christmas, Logan. Harper." On the back, she wrote 2 words that would haunt him for years. "Your child." It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was truth. Raw and undeniable. Harper took one last look at the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, the Manhattan skyline shimmering like it was holding its breath. Her reflection stared back at her, tired, bruised by months of emotional neglect, but somehow still standing. She zipped her coat, picked up her worn leather bag, and walked toward the elevator. Every step felt like the floor might crumble beneath her. Every breath felt like it scraped her chest. Every memory of Logan, the good, the bad, the almosts, clawed at her ribs. But when the elevator doors slid shut, something inside her shifted. A tiny spark. A whisper of strength, the kind that comes only when a woman has lost everything and realizes she's still alive. Outside, a black Mercedes pulled up, the one Logan always bragged about. But he wasn't inside. Someone else was. Someone who had been waiting for her. And when Harper lifted her eyes, she saw a face she never expected to see tonight. A man who would change everything. Harper Lennox wasn't the kind of woman people noticed when she entered a room, and maybe that was part of the reason life had been so unkind to her. At 31, she carried herself with the gentle carefulness of someone who had spent years trying not to take up too much space. Soft brown eyes, hair usually pulled into a loose twist, clothes simple and modest because she never felt entitled to luxury. She wasn't flashy, not ambitious in the ruthless Manhattan way, and certainly not the type to survive the emotional warfare of a high-profile marriage. Yet she had survived. For years. Until now. Growing up in a struggling town in Ohio, Harper learned early what it meant to be less than. Money was always short, affection was conditional, and dreams were luxuries only other children seemed allowed to have. She tried college, but her father lost his job during her sophomore year, and Harper quit school to work full-time so her younger siblings could finish high school. She didn't resent it. She'd always been the one to sacrifice. That was the Harper Logan Sterling met years later in New York. Sweet, selfless, easy to mold. She was working as a temp receptionist at a financial firm when Logan walked into the lobby one rainy morning, shaking droplets from his umbrella. He had looked at her like she was sunlight after a storm. He complimented her smile. He asked her to lunch. He chased her with the kind of intensity she'd only seen in movies. For a woman who'd never been chosen before, his attention felt like a gift from fate. Harper still remembered their first date. Sitting across from him in a small cafe, hands wrapped around a hot latte while he listened to her as though her words mattered. She told him about her family, her dreams of becoming a kindergarten teacher someday, her fear that maybe life had passed her by. Logan told her she deserved everything. She believed him. When he proposed a year later under the warm glow of Christmas lights near Central Park, Harper thought she had finally outrun the cycle of being unwanted. Marriage to Logan felt like stepping into the life she had always been denied. A home, stability, a place in the world. But fairy tales fade when their foundations crack. Over the years, Logan's adoration shifted into indifference. His compliments turned into critiques. His warmth cooled into something colder, sharper, calculated. He made her feel small again, just like Ohio had. Only now the stakes were higher, the city bigger, the fall greater. Yet the world didn't know this Harper. To everyone else, she was the quiet wife of a rising financial star. To Logan, she was a burden. To herself, she wasn't sure anymore. But she would be. Because the same woman who had always sacrificed was about to learn how to choose herself, even if it meant starting from ashes. Manhattan had a way of swallowing people whole. Some residents thrived in its glittering chaos. Others simply learned how to breathe beneath the weight of it. For Harper Lennox, the city was both sanctuary and prison, depending on the angle of the light hitting the glass towers. She had lived in New York for nearly a decade, but she still carried the quiet awe of a newcomer. Every morning, she walked past the same bustling coffee cart on Park Avenue, steam rising into the crisp air. Every evening, she returned to the penthouse she shared with Logan Sterling, a place that never quite felt like hers. The building itself was impressive in every way. A sleek, modern tower overlooking the city, staffed with doormen who greeted Logan with reverence and Harper with polite distance. Inside, the marble floors gleamed beneath the soft lighting, and a curated scent, a mix of cedar and white jasmine, filled the hallways. It was luxury crafted for people who wanted to be seen. Logan belonged there. Harper did not. Their penthouse sat on the 47th floor. A panoramic view of Manhattan stretched across every window. At night, the city glittered like an ocean of diamonds. Logan often boasted about the view to guests, clients, investors, colleagues he wanted to impress. Harper would serve wine, refill glasses, and smile as though she were part of the decor. But when the parties ended, when the laughter faded, the penthouse grew unbearably silent. Logan disappeared into late-night calls, late-night meetings, and eventually late-night lies. Harper wandered through the pristine rooms, living rooms staged like a magazine cover, kitchen she rarely cooked in anymore, bedroom colder than the winter outside, feeling like a ghost haunting a life she no longer recognized. Still, she stayed. That was the cruel beauty of Manhattan. It convinced you that leaving meant failing. Harper's workplace wasn't far. Sterling Tower, a shimmering glass monolith near Bryant Park. As an administrative assistant, she spent her days juggling schedules, organizing documents, navigating corporate egos, and avoiding Savannah Rhodes, the too-perfect assistant whose heels clicked like warning shots when she walked. The building itself was a symbol of Logan's ascent. High-powered, polished, untouchable. The boardrooms smelled of espresso and ambition. The lobby was filled with men in tailored coats and women who moved like they floated, holding MacBooks and Starbucks cups that cost more than Harper's lunch. Every day, Harper worked beneath the same roof as her husband and his mistress. Every day, she held her breath. But there was another setting, one not of marble or glass, but of warmth. Grace, Harper's older sister, lived in a cozy walk-up in Brooklyn, A tiny apartment filled with mismatched furniture, candles, plants with names and sketches taped on the wall. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Harper always felt her shoulders relax there. She would soon need that space more than ever, because the city that once promised possibility was about to become the battleground where Harper would lose everything, and then rediscover who she truly was. If people only saw Logan Sterling in photographs, they would never believe he was capable of cruelty. Cameras loved him. New York adored him. Investors trusted him the way children trust sunlight. With steel blue eyes, a clean jawline, and the charisma of a seasoned politician, Logan walked through Manhattan as if the city had been built for him alone. But Harper Lennox knew better. She had watched the shift happen piece by piece, like the slow formation of a storm cloud no one else bothered to notice. Logan grew up in Connecticut, the golden child of a wealthy family with a name that carried weight. Expectations were stitched into his upbringing. Ivy League colleges, country clubs, flawless grades, polished ambition. He mastered all of it. People didn't just like Logan. They gravitated toward him. His confidence was magnetic. His sarcasm carefully calculated to sound charming rather than cruel. For a long time, even Harper believed he was everything he appeared to be. When Logan landed a position as CFO of Sterling Equity Group, the financial world treated him like its new rising star. Articles featured him as the man shaping the future of investment strategy. Board members bragged about hiring him. His signature on a contract meant deals went through without hesitation. But power had a way of hollowing a man from the inside. The more Logan climbed, the less human he became. He stopped seeing people, especially Harper, as individuals with feelings. Instead, everyone became an accessory to his success, something to polish, something to control. He carried a smugness that only grew sharper with promotion. He began skipping dinners, ignoring messages, sleeping with his phone pressed to his ear. He tossed off lines like, "You wouldn't understand," or "Just let me handle the grown-up problems," as though Harper were an inconvenience, not a partner. Then came Savannah Rhodes. Savannah entered the company like a walking reminder of everything Harper wasn't. Young, glamorous, sharp-tongued, ambitious in a way that glittered. She wore designer skirts, carried a sleek iPhone that never left her perfectly manicured fingers, and laughed too loudly at Logan's jokes. Logan didn't stand a chance. Or maybe he chose not to. The shift was immediate. Logan became colder, harsher. He criticized Harper for things he once found endearing: her simplicity, her quietness, her discomfort in high society events. He gave Savannah responsibilities that weren't hers, then time, then praises, then everything else. Harper confronted him only once, weeks before Christmas Eve. He didn't deny it. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. Instead, Logan said the words that broke something fundamental inside her. "Savannah understands my world. You don't belong in it." From that moment on, everything about Logan changed. His tone, his distance, his complete indifference to Harper's pain. He became a stranger living in the same penthouse, a storm wearing a tailored suit. A man so consumed by ambition he didn't notice the pieces of his life shattering around him. He didn't know it yet, but storms eventually destroy themselves. The betrayal didn't happen quietly. It happened under golden chandeliers, in a room filled with Manhattan's wealthiest, where whispers traveled faster than champagne bubbles. Harper Lennox remembered every detail of that night, not because she wanted to, but because pain has a way of engraving memories into bone. It was Sterling Equity's annual winter gala, hosted at the Riverdale Grand, a ballroom famous for charity events, celebrity sightings, and a view of the East River that sparkled like a promise. Harper had spent hours getting ready, choosing a soft silver dress she hoped would make Logan look at her the way he used to. She practiced smiles in the mirror, reminding herself to breathe, reminding herself this was important for his career. She believed showing up as a supportive wife still mattered. She didn't know she was walking into her own heartbreak. The moment Harper stepped inside, something felt wrong. Eyes flickered toward her, then away, carrying an emotion she couldn't name. Pity? Curiosity? Fear? The room hummed with an energy that made her skin prickle. Then she saw him. Logan Sterling, her husband. Handsome. Polished. A man born to hold a whiskey glass under ballroom lights walked through the crowd with Savannah Rhodes clinging to his arm. Savannah, in a crimson gown that draped over her body like sin in silk, leaned into him as though she belonged there. The crowd noticed. Cameras noticed. Harper froze. At first she thought there must be some explanation. A misunderstanding. A work-related gesture taken out of context. Anything but the truth clawing its way into her chest. Then Logan saw Harper, and instead of pulling away from Savannah, he tightened his arm around the younger woman's waist. The room tilted. Air evaporated. Her heart clenched so sharply she swore it cracked. Someone nearby whispered, "His wife's here." Another murmured, "He brought Savannah anyway?" Humiliation spread up Harper's throat, hot and choking. Logan approached her, not with apology, not with shock, but with irritation, as though she had disrupted a carefully staged performance. "You weren't supposed to come tonight," he muttered under his breath. "I'm your wife," Harper whispered, voice shaking. "Not for much longer," Savannah chimed in sweetly, her smile venomous. The final blow came moments later. The CEO took the stage for a speech and introduced Logan and Savannah as our power duo for next year's strategic expansion. The spotlight hit them, illuminating a truth Harper had tried desperately not to see. Logan had already rewritten his life. She was no longer in the story. The applause roared. Harper stood motionless, drowning in the sound. The glittering ballroom blurred. Her breathing grew shallow as the weight of betrayal crushed her from all sides. In that single moment, under the chandeliers, under the whispers, under Logan's cold pride, Harper Lennox broke. But the thing about breaking, it's the first step to rebuilding into something stronger. Harper didn't remember leaving the ballroom. One moment she was frozen under the chandeliers, and the next, she was outside on the stone steps of the Riverdale Grand, breath trembling in the cold night air. Snow drifted around her like confetti from a tragic celebration. The city lights blurred as tears spilled freely, no longer able to restrain themselves behind polite smiles and quiet endurance. Her silver dress felt too tight. The ground beneath her heels felt unstable, as if Manhattan itself had shifted. She wrapped her arms around her body not for warmth, but to hold herself together, because inside, everything was unraveling. Harper tried to call Logan. No answer. She tried again, sent straight to voicemail. She typed a message. "Can we please talk?" But the three little dots never appeared. Her stomach twisted, not just from heartbreak, but from the nausea she'd been quietly fighting for days. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, terrified that stress alone might harm the fragile life growing inside her. A cab honked in the distance. Laughter spilled from the hotel doors. Couples brushed past her, wrapped in scarves, wrapped in love. Everything she didn't have. Everything she had once believed Logan was offering her. When she finally reached the curb, her vision blurred again. She stumbled, gripping a metal railing as a wave of dizziness overtook her. A doorman rushed to steady her, concern etching his face. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Harper nodded weakly, though tears slid down her cheeks. Just a long night. In truth, it was the longest night of her life. She climbed into a taxi and gave the driver the address of the penthouse. On the ride back, she pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching the city smear past in streaks of white and gold. Every streetlight reflected another memory. The day Logan proposed, the first holiday they spent together. Nights they dreamed about children they never had. Children Logan clearly never wanted. Back at the penthouse, the silent coldness felt heavier than usual. Harper walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and let the sobs come. Violent, shaking, unstoppable. She hugged Logan's pillow, inhaling the faint scent of his cologne mixed with something unfamiliar. Savannah's perfume. That's when she broke completely. She cried until her throat burned, cried until she felt hollow, cried until breathing felt optional. The woman's heart that had quietly endured everything finally collapsed beneath the weight of being unseen. When she could no longer cry, Harper stood slowly and walked to the bathroom. She opened the drawer, pulled out the pregnancy test she hadn't told anyone about, and stared at the pink lines again. 2 lines. 2 futures. One she wanted, and one she feared. She sank to the floor, whispering into the quiet tiles. "I'm so sorry, baby. I don't know how to do this." Her whisper broke. Her voice cracked. Her hope dimmed. But just before she drifted into exhausted sleep on the bathroom floor, a single thought surfaced. Quiet, fragile, but alive. I have to protect this child, even if I have to do it alone. The morning after the gala, Harper woke with a pounding headache and swollen eyes, still curled on the bathroom floor. The lights from the city filtered through the frosted glass, casting fractured patterns across her face. She pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering a shaky promise to the life inside her. But she wasn't ready for what waited outside that door. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, missed calls, emails, notifications piling up like an avalanche. At first, Harper ignored them, assuming they were automated reminders or trivial office updates. But when she finally picked up the phone, she saw the name that made her pulse stall: Dr. Adrian Wolfe. The very same Adrian she had once helped in the lobby months earlier, when he'd fainted from exhaustion during back-to-back investor meetings. She'd been the only one to rush to his aid while others hesitated. Afraid of liability. She remembered kneeling beside him, steadying him as she whispered, "You're okay. Just breathe." At the time, she didn't know Adrian was the CEO of MedForward, one of the top medical tech companies in the country. She didn't know he would remember her kindness. She certainly didn't know he was the key to everything that was about to unfold. With trembling fingers, Harper answered the call. "Harper?" His voice was steady, calm. Everything hers wasn't. "Are you safe?" Safe. A strange word, one she hadn't felt in a long time. "Yes," she whispered. "I think so." "I need to speak with you," Adrian continued. "It's important. Very important." Harper hesitated. "Is this about your meeting follow-up?" "I'm not with Sterling today. No," he cut in. "It's about Logan." Her blood ran cold. Adrian exhaled slowly before continuing. "I didn't want to involve you unless I had to, but after what I saw last night, after the way he treated you publicly, I can't ignore it anymore." Harper's heart pounded. "Saw what?" There was a pause, a heavy one. "Logan is under federal review," Adrian said. "We've suspected financial misconduct for months. Sterling Equity is being quietly audited, and Harper, your department's documents are involved." Her breath caught. "What do you mean, involved? I don't handle anything important. I only—" "That's what makes this dangerous," Adrian said gently. "Logan used your login credentials. Your digital signature appears on several flagged files. They will think you participated in the fraud unless we prove otherwise." Her knees buckled. She grabbed the counter to stay upright. "No. No." Logan wouldn't, but he would. She knew that now. Adrian continued. "I've already spoken to an attorney who can represent you. She's excellent. But I need you to listen carefully. Logan is preparing to shift the blame onto someone expendable." Expendable. That word hit harder than any betrayal. Tears blurred her vision again. "Why are you helping me?" Another pause, softer this time. "Because you once helped a stranger?" Adrian said quietly, and because no one deserves to be destroyed for someone else's greed. Harper slid to the bathroom floor again, but this time not from despair. From the realization that her survival had just become a war, and she was no longer fighting alone. Harper had spent years shrinking herself to fit inside Logan Sterling's world, biting her tongue, lowering her voice, folding her dreams into smaller shapes. But something changed the moment Adrian Wolfe told her the truth. The fear that once paralyzed her began transforming into something sharper, something steadier, a pulse of survival. By noon, Harper packed a small duffel bag, slipped out of the penthouse, and took a cab across the East River to Brooklyn. Grace opened the apartment door in an oversized sweater, her expression shifting from confusion to horror at the sight of Harper's tear-stained face. "What happened?" Grace demanded. "Everything. Nothing. Too much." Harper stepped inside, dropped her bag, and finally whispered, "Logan tried to frame me." Grace didn't gasp or panic. She pulled Harper into a fierce embrace, the kind you only get from someone who has survived her own heartbreak. "You're safe now," she murmured. "We'll figure this out. One step at a time." The warmth of Grace's tiny apartment, plants on every shelf, a kettle always humming, mismatched pillows on the couch, felt like the first real shelter Harper had in months. She spent the rest of the day wrapped in a soft blanket, sipping peppermint tea while Grace paced the kitchen, ranting about Logan's audacity. But Harper wasn't just healing. She was planning. Adrian called again that evening, checking on her, assuring her the attorney would meet them the next morning. His voice carried a steadiness she hadn't realized she'd needed. When he asked if she was all right, Harper didn't lie. "I'm scared," she said softly, "but I'm done being silent." That night, something inside her awakened, an ember she thought had long gone cold. Harper took a long shower, letting the water wash the last remnants of the penthouse off her skin. When she wiped the mirror, she didn't see the timid woman who walked out of Logan's gala. She saw someone different, a woman standing on the edge of her own rebirth. She opened Grace's closet and borrowed a fitted black turtleneck, a structured coat, boots that clicked confidently against the floor. The next morning, she tied her hair into a sleek low bun, applied makeup with steady hands, and slipped her phone into her bag. Grace gasped when she saw her. "Oh my God, Harper, you look powerful." It wasn't just the clothes, it was the decision. As she stepped out into the crisp winter air, the Brooklyn skyline glowing behind her, Harper felt the ground beneath her steady. Not because Logan was gone, but because she was finally choosing herself. She remembered something Adrian said on the phone. "You've been surviving for too long, Harper. It's time to start fighting." And she would, for her child, for her future, for the version of herself she lost while trying to love a man who only loved control. Harper Lennox wasn't reborn in a blaze of glory. She was reborn in quiet determination, the kind that destroys men like Logan Sterling. The conference hall inside Sterling Tower buzzed with power. 100 executives, 24 investors, news outlets waiting outside for statements. Today was the quarterly financial briefing, Logan Sterling's favorite stage, the place where he flexed numbers, charmed stockholders, and polished his immaculate reputation. He didn't know the stage was about to collapse beneath him. Harper Lennox stood across the street with Adrian Wolfe and attorney Celeste Moran, her breath fogging the cold Manhattan air. Her black coat whipped slightly in the wind, her spine straight, her hands steady. She didn't look like the trembling woman who cried on a bathroom floor. She looked like a force of nature preparing to reclaim her name. "You sure you're ready?" Adrian asked quietly. Harper nodded. "He used me. He framed me. He humiliated me. This is the first time I'm walking into a room he doesn't control." The three entered the tower together. Inside, the opulence was staggering. Marble floors, towering glass panels, a chandelier shaped like a frozen waterfall. Executives whispered as Harper passed. They recognized her from the gala. Some wore pity, some wore guilt, others fear. Logan was at the front of the room reviewing notes when she stepped through the doors. His jaw tightened, his grip on the podium faltered. "Harper," he hissed under his breath. "This isn't the place. You shouldn't—" Celeste cut him off sharply. "Mr. Sterling, you'll want to choose your next words carefully considering the evidence we're submitting today." Logan paled. Adrian stepped forward, voice calm but carrying authority that silenced the entire hall. "Before we begin, I need to address an internal matter. Several documents submitted under Harper Lennox's credentials were flagged during our audit. Mr. Sterling assured us Harper had committed these actions." Whispers erupted. Logan swallowed hard. Adrian continued. "However, after forensic review, we discovered the truth." He clicked a remote. Screens behind him lit up with digital logs, timestamps, IP addresses, security footage, proving one thing: Logan used Harper's credentials to authorize fraudulent transactions. Gasps echoed through the room. Someone muttered, "He framed his own wife?" Another whispered, "This could mean prison." Harper kept her gaze locked on Logan. For the first time, he looked small. Savannah stood in the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable, until she slowly stepped away from Logan, distancing herself like a rat leaving a sinking ship. Celeste spoke next. "We are filing charges for identity fraud, financial coercion, and intentional manipulation of a dependent spouse. Harper has been cleared of all wrongdoing." Applause didn't break out. This wasn't a movie, but something better happened. Executives began pulling away from Logan. Investors walked out, the board recessed in panic, and Harper. She simply stood there, taller than she'd ever felt. Logan took a step toward her. "We can fix this. Harper, please." She stepped back. "No, Logan. You did this, not me." Her voice didn't shake. His did. As security approached to escort him out for questioning, Logan Sterling, the man who once believed he was untouchable, looked at Harper with terror, realizing the truth. The woman he broke had learned how to break him back, and she didn't even have to raise her voice. The days following Logan's downfall felt surreal, like stepping out of a long, dark tunnel into sudden daylight. Harper Lennox, once the quiet shadow trailing behind a powerful man, found herself standing in a version of life she never imagined possible. Her name was cleared publicly. The press ran headlines praising her courage. Executives who once looked past her now nodded with respect. Yet none of it compared to the quiet moment she experienced when she returned home. Her new home. Grace helped her move into a small but sunlit apartment on the Upper West Side, close to Central Park. It wasn't luxurious, not compared to the penthouse she had once lived in, but the space felt alive with possibility. Plants on the windowsill, a small oak table, a warm throw blanket folded on the sofa. It felt like hers, a place she chose, a place she could breathe. One evening, as snow drifted softly outside, Harper sat on the sofa, a cup of chamomile tea warming her hands. Her belly had begun to show, a gentle reminder of the life she was protecting. The baby kicked softly, and a tender, unexpected smile curved her lips. "You're safe now," she whispered. A knock interrupted the quiet. When she opened the door, Adrian Wolfe stood there, bundled in a dark coat dusted with snowflakes. He held a small wrapped gift, not extravagant, just simple brown paper and twine. Something about that made her chest ache. "May I?" he asked gently. She stepped aside. Adrian entered, pausing to admire the view of the city glowing through her window. "You look peaceful," he said softly. "I feel something new," she replied. "Maybe for the first time." He nodded, as though he understood in ways few ever could. Then he handed her the small box. For the baby. And for you. Inside was a delicate silver locket. Nothing flashy, nothing overwhelming. Inside the locket was room for 2 tiny photos. For you both to carry each other, Adrian said. Emotion surged up her throat. Adrian, I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to, he replied. You saved me once without asking for anything. I'm just returning what the world owes you. A soft silence grew between them. Not awkward, but warm, familiar. A silence that held possibility. Harper, Adrian continued, voice lower now. I don't want to rush anything. You've been hurt deeply. You deserve time. But someday, I would be honored to build something real with you. Something gentle. Something you never have to shrink for. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from a quiet kind of joy she hadn't felt in years. She nodded. Someday, maybe I'd like that too. Outside, snow continued to fall across Manhattan, soft, white, forgiving. The same city that once tried to crush her now seemed to shine for her. Harper placed a hand on her belly, the other gently touching the locket. Her voice was barely a whisper. This is our new beginning. And for the first time, it truly was. For a few brief weeks, life finally felt survivable. Harper woke each morning to soft sunlight filtering through her curtains, the scent of Grace's blueberry coffee cake drifting through the hallway, and the gentle reassurance of her baby's heartbeat during appointments. Adrian checked in often, not intrusively, but with genuine care that felt steady, grounding. Harper was beginning to feel something unfamiliar, safety. But villains rarely accept their downfall quietly, and Logan Sterling was no exception. It began with a letter. Harper found it slipped under her apartment door one cold, gray morning. Her breath caught when she saw the handwriting, sharp, impatient strokes she knew too well. For a moment she considered throwing it away, burning it, pretending the past had no voice. But Harper Lennox didn't run anymore. She opened the envelope. Harper, we need to talk. You owe me that much. Logan. Her chest tightened. Owe him? After everything? After the affair, the humiliation, the fraud he pinned on her? The arrogance was breathtaking. She set the letter aside, trying to steady her shaking hands. But that was only the beginning. Over the next few days, Logan attempted to contact her through blocked numbers, unfinished emails, even showing up outside her old workplace. HR sent her a message warning that Logan had been trying to access restricted files tied to her, again. Then came the worst message of all. A voicemail. 17 seconds. Logan's voice, desperate, slurring slightly. Harper, you're ruining my life. You need to talk to me. You think Adrian Wolfe cares about you? He's using you. You have no idea what you've started. A chill trailed down Harper's spine. For months, Logan had been ice, cold, unforgiving, unbothered. But now his voice cracked under panic, under loss, under the realization that the world no longer bowed to him. But panic made men like Logan dangerous. Harper played the voicemail again, listening to the way his breath hitched, the bitterness in every word. This wasn't love. This wasn't remorse. It was ownership. The sound of a man who believed she still belonged to him. When she met Adrian for a follow-up meeting at Med Forward headquarters, he noticed her trembling hands instantly. What happened? He asked. Harper hesitated, old habits of silence clinging to her. But then she reached into her coat and handed him the letter. Adrian's jaw tightened, the softness in his expression hardening into something protective. He contacted you directly? She nodded. He won't stop unless we force him to, Adrian said. Men like Logan don't accept consequences. They fight the fall until they break everything in their path. Harper swallowed, fear and determination twisting inside her. What do we do? Adrian met her gaze, steady and unwavering. We build a wall he cannot climb. Legally, publicly, permanently. Harper drew a slow breath, her hand drifting to her stomach. For the first time, she felt the weight of what she was fighting for. Not just her freedom, not just justice, but a future where her child would never fear a man like Logan Sterling. The villain had returned, but this time Harper wasn't the one trembling. Logan Sterling didn't disappear after the letter. Instead, he multiplied, his presence seeping into every corner of Harper's life like a stain she couldn't scrub off. The more she tried to move forward, the harder he pulled, as if dragging her back into the darkness he created. The harassment escalated quickly. First came the texts, short, frantic bursts of blame and self-pity. "You ruined me, Harper. You think you're innocent? You're not. Talk to me before this gets worse." She blocked one number. He used another. Then came the unexpected visit to Grace's building. The doorman called Harper and whispered, "Miss Lennox, your husband is here. He looks unstable." Harper froze, breath strangled in her chest. She peeked through the blinds. Logan stood on the sidewalk below, pacing in the snow, hair wild, coat unbuttoned, eyes scanning every window as if expecting her to materialize on command. Grace threatened to call the police. Logan finally left, but the tremble in Harper's hands lasted long after he was gone. That evening, she sat on Grace's couch, knees pulled to her chest, the dim lamp casting a soft glow across the apartment. "I'm tired, Grace," she whispered. "I'm tired of being scared of him. Tired of waking up wondering what he'll try next." Grace sat beside her, taking her hand gently. "Fear means you're still healing, but you don't have to fight alone. Not anymore." As if summoned by the conversation, Harper's phone buzzed again. This time Adrian calling. She answered with a shaky breath. "Harper, I need you to come to the office tomorrow." Something's happened. The tone of his voice, controlled but edged with urgency, made her heart pick up speed. "What happened?" Logan made a move. "A reckless one," Adrian said, "but it might be the mistake that ends this." The next morning, Harper entered MedForward headquarters wearing the same black turtleneck and coat that symbolized her turning point. Adrian was waiting inside his glass-walled office, anger simmering beneath his composure. He slid a file across the desk. "Logan attempted to access your sealed audit documents," Adrian said. "He used an unauthorized badge, and he triggered every security alert we have." Harper blinked. "Why would he do that?" "Because he's desperate," Adrian replied. "He knows prosecutors are circling. He knows Savannah flipped on him to save herself. He knows the board cut ties with him." Adrian leaned forward, voice gentler now. "And he knows he's losing control of you." Harper's stomach twisted. The fear returned, sharp, instinctive, but then something else rose to meet it. Anger. A quiet, steady anger that warmed her from inside. "So what happens now?" she asked. Adrian hesitated, then said, "Now we protect you legally and physically. I've arranged security for your building." Her eyes widened. "Adrian, that's too much." "It's not enough," he interrupted. "You're carrying a child, Harper. His child. That makes you a target in ways I refuse to ignore." Her breath hitched, not from fear this time, but from the realization that someone finally cared whether she survived this. Adrian stood and placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Logan thinks you're the same woman he broke. He hasn't realized you're rebuilding yourself into someone who can destroy him." Harper swallowed hard, her hand instinctively drifting to her belly. For the first time, she believed him. Logan Sterling had always believed he was the smartest man in every room. Even after the audit fiasco, even after investors abandoned him, even after Savannah Rhodes betrayed him in exchange for immunity, he still clung to the delusion that he could outmaneuver everyone, including Harper, especially Harper. But he didn't realize the walls were closing in from every direction. 3 days after his attempted breach into MedForward's system, Harper sat in Adrian Wolf's office again. Snow drifted lazily past the massive windows, contrasting sharply with the tension filling the room. Celeste Moran, the attorney, spread documents across the glass table, court filings, digital timestamps, security reports. "We're ready," Celeste said. "Everything is in place." Harper exhaled slowly. "Ready for what?" Celeste slid a thick file toward her. "For the restraining order, the criminal charges, and, depending on how he reacts, the full public disclosure." Harper's hand hesitated. "Public?" Adrian leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "Harper, Logan isn't just a bad husband. He's dangerous. He's already tried to access your documents illegally. He stalked Grace's building. He contacted you repeatedly. He's unraveling." "And unraveling men break things," Celeste added, "including the people standing in their way." Harper looked at the papers, then at Adrian, searching his expression. "You really think he'll fight this?" Adrian didn't sugarcoat it. "Logan only knows how to fight." That evening, Harper returned to her apartment under the escort of a security driver Adrian insisted she use. She felt a heaviness in her chest. Fear, yes, but also an unsettling anticipation, like the quiet second before lightning strikes. She didn't have to wait long. At nearly midnight, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, she would ignore it, but something in her gut told her this time was different. She answered with trembling fingers. "Harper." Logan's voice, cold, low, eerily calm. Her breath caught. "Don't call me again." "Do you think you're safe with that man?" Logan hissed. "Do you think he cares about you? Adrian Wolf is using you as a shield, and when he's done, you'll be alone again. You always end up alone." Harper swallowed hard, but this time the fear didn't consume her. Anger rose, hot, clear, cleansing. "You don't decide my future anymore, Logan." Silence, a dangerous silence. "You think you can turn the world against me?" he finally said. "You think you can win? Harper, you were nothing before me." "Maybe," she whispered. "But you made a mistake teaching me how strong I can be when I finally stopped believing your lies." The line went dead. Within minutes, Harper forwarded the call to Celeste and Adrian. By morning, they responded with the same message. "This is the final piece we needed." Logan had incriminated himself. Threats, manipulation, admission of intent. Everything recorded, everything traceable, everything usable. Harper didn't realize it yet, but she had just delivered the final blow to the man who spent years diminishing her. The trap had been set. And now Logan Sterling had walked into it himself. 2 weeks later, the storm Harper had been bracing for finally arrived. Except this time, she wasn't the one trembling. She sat in Celeste Moran's office overlooking downtown Manhattan, the late afternoon sun reflecting off the skyscrapers like gold armor. Celeste organized documents into neat stacks, methodical and calm. Adrian stood beside the window, arms folded, eyes sharp, watching traffic like a general waiting for a signal. "Today is the day," Celeste said, sliding a final affidavit toward Harper. "Once you sign this, the district attorney's office will move forward. Logan's actions, his threats, his breach attempts, his use of your credentials are enough to classify this as a pattern of coercive fraud." Harper felt the baby shift, a gentle reminder of why she was doing all this. She signed. The sound of her pen against paper felt louder than it should have, like a gavel, sealing the fate of a man who once believed she would never defy him. Celeste smiled faintly. "You just ended his ability to hurt you." Moments later, Celeste's assistant rushed in, breathless. "It's happening. He's at Sterling Tower now. The DA's team is moving in." Harper's pulse quickened. Adrian reached for her coat. "Come on," he said softly. "You deserve to see the world choose your side." They took a black SUV to Midtown. Harper held her breath as Sterling Tower came into view. Familiar, imposing, the same place where she once delivered coffee, organized files, waited for Logan to acknowledge she existed. Now she stood across the street as police cars lined the entrance, red and blue lights flashing against the glass like shards of truth. Crowds gathered, employees whispered, reporters scrambled for a shot. Then Logan appeared. He stumbled out of the building flanked by 2 federal agents. His once perfect suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his confidence shattered. Cameras exploded in flashes as reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Sterling, did you commit financial fraud? Is it true you framed your wife? Did you threaten Harper Lennox?" Harper watched him search the crowd desperately, eyes wild, frantic, until they found her. His expression contorted into something between hatred and disbelief. "Harper!" he shouted, struggling against the agent's grip. "This is your fault! You did this!" Harper didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't look away. She simply stood there, hands resting gently on her stomach, wrapped in a calm she had earned through fire. Adrian stepped beside her, his presence solid and unshakable. Logan's gaze flicked between them, realizing, too late, that Harper was no longer alone, no longer afraid, no longer his to control. As agents pushed him into the police car, Logan shouted her name again, voice cracking. But this time, Harper felt nothing. No fear, no guilt, no heartbreak, just closure. When the door slammed shut and the car pulled away, Celeste exhaled behind them. "It's done. He's facing years, Harper. You're free." For the first time in a long time, Harper believed it. The world didn't just give her justice today. It handed her the final piece of her freedom. Harper Lennox didn't expect the world to feel so strange after Logan's arrest. For years, she had lived inside a storm. Every decision, every emotion, every heartbeat shaped by fear or obligation. When the storm finally broke, the silence that followed felt unreal. Too soft, too gentle, almost dangerous in its unfamiliarity. For the first time in months, she slept through the night. No late-night pounding on her door, no hidden messages, no anxiety that her phone buzzing could shatter her life again. Just stillness. Grace celebrated the moment with a homemade breakfast, pancakes too fluffy, eggs too salty, but made with joy. Harper ate slowly, savoring each bite. It felt like reclaiming a part of herself she didn't realize she'd lost. "You look lighter," Grace said, pouring syrup with dramatic flair. "Like someone finally took a boulder off your chest." Harper smiled faintly. Maybe they did. By afternoon, Harper met Adrian at a quiet cafe near Central Park. Warm wood tables, soft jazz humming through the speakers. Windows fogged from winter air. It felt like a safe cocoon tucked away from Manhattan's noise. Adrian ordered peppermint tea for her without asking. He remembered. "You look different," Adrian said gently when she settled into the chair. "Is that your polite way of saying I look exhausted?" Harper joked. He chuckled softly. "You look free. That's rarer." His gaze held warmth. Not pity, not concern, but admiration. Genuine, steady admiration. Harper felt her cheeks warm, unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. "I don't know what comes next," she admitted. "I've spent so long reacting to Logan's chaos. I don't know who I am without it." Adrian leaned forward. "Then you get to choose. That's the gift of surviving." Surviving. She let the words sink in. After they finished tea, Adrian led her on a slow walk through Central Park. Snow blanketed the grass. Children chased each other laughing, couples strolled hand in hand. Harper felt the baby kick again, a tiny flutter of life reminding her of the future she was building. "You're going to make a wonderful mother," Adrian said softly, watching her hand rest on her belly. Harper swallowed. "I hope so. I know so," he replied. because you already fought harder than most people ever have to. As they crossed the bridge overlooking the frozen lake, Harper felt a sudden rush of emotion. Not sadness, not fear, but gratitude. Gratitude for Grace, for Celeste, for Adrian, for the strength she didn't know she had until life demanded it. She stopped walking. Adrian glanced back, concerned. "You okay?" Harper nodded slowly. "For the first time, I think I am." The wind brushed her hair. Snowflakes kissed her cheeks. The city no longer looked like a battlefield. It looked like a beginning. Adrian offered his hand. Not demanding, not expecting, just offering. Harper took it, not because she needed to be saved, not because she feared walking alone, but because for the first time she wanted to walk toward something new. Her past was behind her, sealed, judged, punished. Her future? Soft, growing, waiting. And Harper Lennox was finally ready to claim it. Life began settling into something resembling normal. Harper Lennox spent her mornings attending prenatal checkups, afternoons organizing her new apartment with Grace, and evenings walking through Central Park with Adrian. The winter air felt less punishing, the city less overwhelming. Slowly, gently, Harper felt herself reclaim the pieces of her humanity. But healing isn't a straight path. Sometimes the past sends one final tremor before fading away. It happened on a quiet Thursday morning. Harper had an appointment with Dr. Myers, her obstetrician. She wore a soft cream sweater, wrapped a scarf around her neck, and tucked her ultrasound booklet into her purse. Grace insisted on joining, but Harper told her she wanted to try doing things alone again. Just one small step, she promised. The clinic lobby was warm, decorated for winter with silver ribbons and strings of white lights. Harper checked in, sat in a cozy corner chair, and placed a hand over her belly. The baby moved, a gentle roll beneath her skin. She closed her eyes, whispering, "We're okay. We're really okay." When she opened them again, Logan's sister was standing in front of her, Charlotte Sterling, tall, elegant, everything Logan pretended to be, but kinder, sharper, and far more dangerous when provoked. "Harper," Charlotte breathed, pressing a hand to her chest. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." Harper tensed. Her last encounter with anyone from the Sterling family ended with humiliation and betrayal, but Charlotte's expression wasn't cruel. It was broken, apologetic, human. "I heard what happened," Charlotte continued. "The arrest, the charges. Harper, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it sooner." Harper swallowed hard. "You didn't owe me anything." "No," Charlotte said firmly. "But Logan did. And he failed you in every way a husband can." Harper lowered her gaze, unsure whether to accept comfort or recoil from it. Charlotte hesitated, then sat beside her. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. "Logan called me from Holding last week. He wasn't asking for a lawyer. He wasn't asking for help. He was asking about you." Harper's heart dropped. "Why?" "Because he's losing control," Charlotte said. "You were the last thing in his life he thought he still owned." A shiver ran through Harper. Not fear, not anymore, but recognition of a truth she had lived for too long. Charlotte continued, gentler now. "I came to tell you that the Sterling family wants nothing to do with his defense. My parents are severing ties, and if you decide you want full legal protection, financial restitution, anything, we'll support you." Harper's breath caught. This wasn't expected. This wasn't a trap. It was accountability. Before she could respond, a nurse called her name. Charlotte stood. "Harper, you didn't deserve what he did, and if you're willing, I'd like to be part of making it right." Harper paused, hand on her belly. "For my child's sake," she said softly, "I won't say no." As she walked toward the exam room, something loosened in her chest. Not forgiveness, but release. The past had come to pull her back. Instead, it pushed her forward. Harper left the clinic feeling lighter, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because something had finally shifted. The past no longer stalked her every breath. Charlotte's unexpected support, the doctor's reassuring words, and her baby's steady heartbeat all created a soft, fragile sense of possibility. She walked slowly toward Central Park, snow crunching under her boots. The winter air nipped at her cheeks, but for the first time in months, she didn't pull her coat tighter out of fear. She allowed herself to breathe deeply, filling her lungs with cold air that felt like clarity. The world looked different now. As she crossed into the park, Harper spotted Adrian waiting by the bridge, the same bridge where they had walked weeks earlier before everything broke open. He held 2 cups from a nearby cafe, steam rising into the air. When he saw her, his expression softened into something warm, something grounding. "You're early," he said, offering her the peppermint tea he remembered she liked. "I didn't want to go home yet," Harper admitted. "It was an emotional appointment." Adrian's brow furrowed. "Is everything okay with the baby?" She nodded quickly. "The baby's healthy. Actually," her voice softened, "we're both doing better than I thought." They walked side by side, snow falling in slow spirals around them. Harper wasn't sure how to bring up what happened with Charlotte, but Adrian sensed her hesitation. "Something else happened," he said gently. "I can see it." She smiled softly. "You always can." So she told him, about Charlotte appearing in the waiting room, about the Sterling family cutting ties with Logan, about the offer of support. Adrian listened quietly, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed ahead until she finished. When she stopped speaking, he turned to her. "How do you feel about it?" "I'm not sure yet," Harper admitted. "It's strange, having people defend me instead of doubting me. It feels like stepping into a life I don't fully recognize." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. "You deserve a life where people show up for you, Harper, where you don't have to fight alone." She looked down at the snow-covered path, voice small. "I'm still learning how to believe that." He slowed, stepping in front of her, gently lifting her chin so she'd meet his eyes. "You're allowed to rewrite your story. The past doesn't get the final chapter unless you let it." Something warm blossomed in her chest. Comfort, gratitude, maybe even the early glow of something more. She didn't say anything at first. She didn't need to. Adrian understood her silence better than Logan ever understood her words. They continued walking, and Harper felt her steps grow surer. The weight she carried, once drenched in fear and shame, felt lighter now, shaped by growth instead of trauma. She imagined the future her child would grow up in, one built not from wealth or reputation, but from stability, kindness, and a mother who finally knew her worth. As they reached the park exit, Adrian glanced at her with a quiet smile. "Harper, whatever comes next, you won't be facing it alone. Not if you don't want to." She exhaled, breath forming a soft cloud in the crisp air. "Maybe," she said, her voice steady this time. "I'm finally ready for something next." And for the first time, it wasn't hope that scared her. It was how much she wanted it. As winter melted slowly into early spring, Harper Lennox found herself settling into a rhythm she once believed she'd never feel again. A rhythm built on gentleness, safety, and a future that didn't frighten her. The city around her seemed to breathe differently. Snowbanks shrank, tiny buds appeared in Central Park, and sunlight stretched a little longer each day. It felt symbolic, almost poetic, as though the world itself was healing with her. Harper's belly had grown round, her steps slower, her breaths deeper. She attended her prenatal classes with Grace by her side. sometimes laughing at the awkward breathing exercises, sometimes tearing up at the sight of other expectant mothers whose journeys weren't tangled with trauma. But every time the loneliness tried to creep back, her baby kicked, a reminder she wasn't walking this path alone, and neither was she emotionally. One mild afternoon, Adrian invited her to tour MedForward's community outreach wing, something he'd hinted at for weeks, but insisted on waiting until she felt ready. Harper hesitated at first. Hospitals and corporate buildings carried memories of Logan, of being invisible, of being used as a stepping stone. But Adrian promised this was different. He was right. The outreach center was bright, filled with murals from local artists, shelves stacked with children's books, and volunteers bustling with purpose. Harper observed quietly as Adrian introduced her to staff members, each one speaking to her with genuine warmth. No one looked at her like she was a scandal, a victim, or a footnote in Logan Sterling's downfall. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen for who she was, not what she endured. When they reached a quiet corner overlooking the Hudson River, Adrian paused. "Harper, I asked you here because I wanted you to see something." She turned to him, curious. He handed her a folder. Simple, beige, unassuming. Inside was a proposal. Harper Lennox, Community Development Advisor, MedForward Outreach Initiative. Her throat tightened. "Adrian, I'm not qualified for this." "You're exactly qualified," he said softly. "This program helps vulnerable women. Women recovering from controlling relationships, financial instability, emotional trauma. You survived all of that. You understand better than anyone how to guide them." Harper blinked hard, tears blurring the page. "But I don't have a degree. I don't have—" "You have experience. You have empathy. And you have a voice that deserves to be heard." His expression softened. "Let me give you the space to use it." She looked down at the proposal, then back at Adrian. The man who had entered her life as a stranger she helped on a bad day was now offering her a foundation to rebuild her future. Slowly, she nodded. "I want this. I really want this." Adrian exhaled in relief, a warm smile pulling at his lips. "Good. Then welcome to the team." They stood together at the window, watching sunlight shimmer across the river. Harper rested a hand on her belly, feeling her child flutter, soft, insistent, alive. For the first time, Harper wasn't just surviving. She wasn't just healing. She was beginning again, and this time the beginning was hers to choose. Harper Lennox stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment, smoothing the soft navy dress over her pregnant belly. The dress wasn't expensive, nothing designer, nothing dramatic, but it fit her perfectly. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her, not because she looked different, but because she finally looked alive. Tonight was MedForward's Spring Benefit Gala, a charity event supporting women's health initiatives. Adrian had invited her weeks earlier, insisting she attend not as part of the organization, not as a symbol, but as a guest whose presence matters. Harper had hesitated. Galas reminded her of humiliation, of Logan parading Savannah around like a trophy while she stood invisible. But this gala wasn't about image. It wasn't about wealth. It was about purpose, and she had one now. Grace entered the room, eyes lighting up. "Harper, you look beautiful." Harper blushed. "I look enormous." "You look like a woman rebuilding her life," Grace corrected. "And trust me, that beats any size 2 gown Savannah ever wore." They laughed, a sound Harper hadn't shared with anyone in years. At the gala, the venue glowed with soft gold lighting, floral arrangements, and warm jazz music. Nothing about it reminded her of Sterling Equity's cold luxury. People greeted her with genuine smiles, not judgment. Volunteers thanked her for joining the team. A few attendees even recognized her story, not with pity, but with admiration. Halfway through the evening, Adrian approached her. He wore a classic black suit, not flashy, just clean and elegant. His smile softened when he reached her. "You made it," he said. "You invited me," Harper replied, suddenly shy. He gestured toward a quieter balcony overlooking the river. "Take a break? I imagine tonight feels heavy?" They stepped outside. The spring breeze carried faint hints of cherry blossoms from the nearby streets. Harper leaned on the balcony railing, feeling the weight of the city's lights beneath her. "Harper," Adrian said gently, "I know you came tonight because it was safe, but I want you to know you're allowed to be here because you belong here." She looked at him, heart tightening. "I'm still learning what that means." "You're doing better than you think." Silence settled between them, warm and unhurried. Harper felt her baby shift, and instinctively she placed a hand on her belly. Adrian's eyes followed the gesture, softening with something that looked dangerously close to affection. "You've changed," he murmured. "Not into someone new, but into who you were always meant to be." Harper swallowed the sudden lump in her throat. "I didn't think I'd ever get this far." "You survived," Adrian said. "You fought back, and now you're building a life that's yours. That's farther than most people ever get." She exhaled shakily, emotion tightening her chest. "Adrian, what if I'm still scared?" He stepped closer, not touching her, just standing near enough that she felt his steadiness. "Then I'll stand with you until you're not." Her breath caught. The night air hummed between them. This wasn't romance born from desperation or rescue. It was something gentler, slower, rooted in mutual respect and rebuilt strength. And as Harper looked out across the sparkling river, she felt something she once believed she'd lost forever: hope for a future she deserved. Spring ripened into early summer, and New York bloomed with it. Trees lush, sidewalks warm, life pulsing through the city in a way that made even the hardest years feel distant. For Harper Lennox, the season marked something even deeper: the quiet arrival of peace she had never believed she would earn. Her due date approached sooner than expected. One June evening, just after sunset, Harper felt the first contraction. Not sharp, but steady, like the beginning of a chapter that had waited patiently for her to be ready. Grace rushed to her side, helping her breathe through the waves, as they called the car Adrian had arranged weeks ago, just in case. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Nurses guided her into a room filled with soft lighting and monitors, grounding her with calm, reassuring voices. Harper squeezed Grace's hand, breath trembling, heart racing. And then, another voice. Steady, familiar. Adrian. He entered the room quietly, not wanting to overwhelm her. But the moment Harper saw him, something inside her steadied. "You're here," she whispered through a breathless laugh. "Of course I'm here," he replied, taking her hand. "You don't have to do any part of your life alone ever again." Hours passed in a blur of pain and determination, fear and courage, and when Harper finally held her baby, a tiny boy with dark, curious eyes, every broken, bruised, damaged part of her heart stitched itself back together in a way she hadn't known was possible. She cried softly, kissing the baby's forehead. "You saved me," she whispered. And maybe he had. Maybe they had saved each other. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the hospital window. Harper lay peacefully with her newborn sleeping on her chest. A nurse entered with flowers, white lilies, soft roses, a handwritten note. "For the strongest woman I've ever known. Welcome to the world, little one." Adrian Harper felt a warmth spread through her that wasn't just gratitude, it was understanding, recognition. The slow realization that love didn't have to hurt to be real. That gentleness could be powerful, that safety could be romantic. Later that afternoon, Adrian stepped into the room, carrying a small stuffed bear and wearing an expression more nervous than she'd ever seen on him. "May I hold him?" he asked softly. Harper nodded, handing the baby over. Adrian cradled the child with a tenderness that made her heart ache in the most beautiful way. "He's perfect," Adrian murmured. "So are you," Harper whispered without meaning to. Their eyes met. Not with urgency, not with fear, but with something slow-burning, certain, inevitable. Adrian sat beside her, still holding the baby. "Harper, I won't push. I won't rush. But I need you to know. My feelings for you aren't conditional on timing or circumstance. They're simply real." Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from healing. "I know," she whispered. "And I think, someday, I could love you too." Adrian smiled, warm, patient, full of future. Outside the window, the city glowed in late afternoon light. Inside the room, a new family, unexpected, imperfect, beautifully real, took its first breath. The most beautiful love story wasn't the one that broke her. It was the one she chose for herself at last. All right. So the story has come to an end. And if you are still here with me right now, my dear friends, then something in Harper's journey must have touched your heart in a way words alone can't explain. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it reminded you of someone you love. Or maybe it reminded you that even the deepest wounds can heal. What Harper lived through isn't just fiction. It's a reflection of what many people silently endure: heartbreak, betrayal, fear, and finally, rebirth. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." Harper's pain became the path that led her to a life she never thought she deserved. And that's a reminder for all of us. Suffering doesn't define you. Your response to it does. If her story shows us anything, it's this: you are stronger than the storms you survived. You are worthy of gentleness, and you have every right to begin again. So if you're here, listening, feeling something shift inside you, take it as a sign. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are becoming. If this story spoke to you, please like, share, and subscribe, not just for the channel, but for the next person who needs to hear they're not alone. We're in this together.